Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from TrustTV here in Abuja. I am Suleiman. Today we are looking at the role of the National Assembly in stemming the rising insecurity in the country, particularly in northern Nigeria, where the general mood is that of grief-stricken and crestfallen. In just 2 days, travelers were burnt alive in Sokoto. Worshippers were killed in a mosque in Niger State. A commissioner was gruesomely murdered in his own house in Katsina, while 2 other people were killed and several abducted in a suburb of Abuja. All of this within 2 days. But that is now the story of northern Nigeria. As the Sultan of Sokoto said, this happens almost every day. So today we ask, what is the role of the National Assembly in stemming the tide of insecurity in our country? Are our legislatures worried about the rising insecurity? And what have they been doing about it? And what more can they do to help solve the problem? Joining me today on this program is Honorable Abdul Razak Namdas, Chairman House Committee on Army, and Dr. Kabir Adamu, a security consultant and expert. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. But before we go into our discussions proper, let us take a minute to bring you a roundup of politics in the news today. Stay with us.
The new chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Iyorchia Ayu, has promised to return the party to the people as it takes over power as the national chairman of the party. Ayu made the promise in his acceptance speech after he was sworn in Abuja on Friday. The new PDP national chairman also promised to implement policies and programs that will return the party back to power come 2023. The 2 major political parties in Jigawa State, the All Progressives Congress APC and opposition People's Democratic Party PDP, have disagreed over the allegation of non-performance by the ruling party in the state. APC Chairman Aminu Sani Gumel at a media forum declared that contrary to claims by his PDP counterpart Ibrahim Babandi Gumel, his party had fulfilled all the electoral promises made to Jigawa people during the 2015 and 2019 campaigns. Therefore, there's no vacancy for a failed party like PDP in 2023. The PDP chieftain Gumel said the party has resolved to salvage the country from its sorrowful situation to a more dynamic and democratic rule with a strong vision. But the APC leader explained that the government in the state had succeeded in executing a minimum of 1 project in each of the 287 political wards across the 27 local government areas of the state. 2 members of the Plateau State House of Assembly have sued the state governor Simon Lalong and 16 of their colleagues over what they describe as illegal impeachment of Ayuba Abak as Speaker of the Parliament. The lawmakers Gwotsim Fom, Jos South, and Tiem Perifa Jimfa, Langtan North, in the suit faulted the ousting of Abak as the Speaker. The removal of Abak and emergence of Yakubu Zanda as Speaker had created crisis in the Parliament. In an originating summons, the plaintiffs are asking the court to nullify the sitting of the House of October 28, 2021, when Abak was impeached. They claim that the impeachment was carried out by less than 2/3 of the lawmakers.
Welcome back. Before we go on that short break, we were talking about the role that the National Assembly as an institution of government plays in stemming the tide of insecurity in the country. On this program, gentlemen, I usually start from my right and then I end from my left. So that helps to me to solve the problem where to start. So I'll be starting with you, Honorable. This whole business in just 2 days.
Yes.
Even for us in northern Nigeria that we're becoming used to this incidents on a daily basis, this is still yet too much for people to bear. in just 2 days, all of these incidents are happening in Sokoto, in Niger State, in Katsina, in Abuja, and maybe in other places that may not have yet been reported. What is going on in northern Nigeria?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes.
I want to tell you that as a member of the National Assembly, and in particular a chairman on the House Committee on Army, I can tell you that we are all worried. Worried in the sense that it's not even about the North alone. The entire country is worrisome. Of course, the news, what has happened in the last 2 days is within the North, and the number of people affected is actually very, 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 it really calls for concern.
Yes.
Even though you lose one person, it's something to worry about. Talk less of having 40 people, 20 people being killed on a daily basis. But we in the National Assembly, there are 3 things we have done, and I will let you know here. First, you should know that the core function of a lawmaker is 3. One is to represent, representation. Then to make law. 3, to oversight. These are the 3 core functions of members of the National Assembly or a lawmaker. Now, we have made sure that anytime during normal annual budgets, in the last 78 years, I can tell you the National Assembly has always been up and doing in terms of providing enough resources for security agencies to do their job. Within the limited resources we have, the security takes the highest. And I can tell you that even if you read the budget speech of the Mr. President 2022, he said, even this year, the security and national security and internal security takes the highest budget. And we are working on it to provide them. In 2021, we even did what is called supplementary budget, specifically to provide the security agencies with enough resources to buy other equipment that they can fight, because we don't want to take excuses. So we have done that. Now, on a daily basis, again, you find individual members in those areas you have just mentioned. They have been presenting motions on motions. We are even tired of the motions. Because when you bring motions or resolutions, you want the government to act. Now it's like every day it has become a song that we are singing. And people know that we have actually done ourselves. And we go on oversight functions to identify where are the challenges. Just a few weeks ago or months ago, we had calls to even call on the president. We passed a resolution that can you please designate bandits as terrorists. Because we were told.
Thank you. Let me bring Dr. Kabir Adamu to the discussion. It's interesting about designating bandits as terrorists, and we'll come into that discussion now. But you raised quite a number of issues that we would like Dr. Kabir to react to. First, about the number of casualties, which is you describe as worrisome and quite high. Sometimes as many as 40 people in one single incidents, so we're talking about nearly 100 people or 80 people in just 2 days dying or losing their lives in violent circumstances. The Honorable also raised the issue of resources in terms of budgetary resources and motions raised, and so on. To what extent are resources, in terms of, to how far would they go in solving a problem of insecurity such as this?
Thank you first and foremost for inviting me and for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on an issue that affects every Nigerian.
Yes.
And in fact that is making the world focus on Nigeria, given our strategic nature in the West African coast and of course in Africa. Anything that happens to Nigeria would make the world uncomfortable, and so there is a lot of attention with regards to security developments in Nigeria. Now, I run a consultancy, and we produce figures of security incidents. So we have a clear dashboard that would tell us, for instance, what local government, what state has the nature of security incident, for instance, that in the country. And so I think that for me is the beginning point. Does the National Assembly have a platform for that type of data that would, because how can you oversight if you are not able to determine, for instance,
you're oversighting
what you're oversighting? And I can even take it further. I know, for instance, that in the budget they have made provision for that type of platforms, dashboards to be created by, there are 27 ministries, departments and agencies in security in Nigeria.
That's serious.
And so when these committees in the National Assembly at the House and the Senate are conducting their oversight functions, do they follow, for instance, the provisions that have been made in the budget with some of the programs or policies that these ministries, departments and agencies say they are going to do? I'm aware that, for instance, in the 2021 budget, there is provision for the creation of these types of dashboard, but I'm not aware that any of these organizations, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, when Mr. President delivered a speech, he was represented by his chief of staff at the just concluded school security conference. I think it was the Safe School Declaration Conference that held in October. To my utter surprise, in that speech, it was a foreign organization that was quoted. It was figures from a foreign organization that was quoted. Now, it made me worried. Why not figures?
It's always the CFR, Center for Foreign Relations.
From the DSS as an example. Why not figures from the military? Why not figures from my company, Beacon Consulting? These are Nigerian, because this was the world. And so I'm starting with that. What I'm trying to make a point that, yes, we pass budgets, but what of the monitoring and evaluation functions that would allow the National Assembly to measure the performances
of the executive and the security agencies.
Yes, in the implementation of the budget as an example. I do not think...
I will allow the honorable member to just wade in directly.
Well, I think he is quite... I made some of his thoughts on how it is being run. But let me be clear here.
Yes.
The National Assembly, well, let me talk about House of Representatives. Sometimes we talk about areas we have competence to talk about. We have over 105 committees in the House of Representatives. And I chair just one out of the 105. I would like to talk on other people's committees. My expertise and areas within my committee is Army. I can tell you, quite frankly, that as far as Army is concerned, we have done what is expected of us to do.
Okay.
For example, after we have passed our budgets, the Army as an institution, all the story people said about them, the Army as an institution, the capital component of the budget, like in 2021, was 29 billion. 29 billion is what I am supposed to oversight, not the
entire budget.
Not the entire budget. For example, about salaries and whatever, it's not for me to come and ask how much these are. It's not the thing.
These are routine issues.
So that 29 billion is expected to repair 130 barracks that is all over Nigeria. I'm talking of just Army. They are supposed to buy equipment to fight Boko Haram with that 29 billion. And I can tell you quite frankly that 29 million is a joke. When I say it's a joke, he's a security consultant, he should know. Army equipments are things you don't go to the shelf and buy. There are things you have to order. If you recall, just quite recently, after you paid 100 upfront of Tucano, you get delivery 3 years after. Nigerians are impatient with such issues. People expect that in 2021, if you pay money on Monday, you expect delivery of items the next week. Once you give stories, you are not doing your job. That's just the way things are working. And I had cause to move around the national, almost all the army formations. I have been to the army depot, where ammunition depot, not the depot in Zaria, where ammunitions are even kept. So that I can see for myself, it's not story.
Yes.
Did you buy those things? And are they still available? So these are what we can be able to do. And we've sent in reports. We have investigated reports even too, to move around. But the ideal thing is that funding in, he mentioned about figures that have been quoted by the president. Well, this is not within my purview. I don't know why the president chose to make quotes. This is...
But the point he was making
Yes.
is that local content
Yes.
in the generation of data
Yes.
is important for, and even the generation of data in in the first instance
Yes.
is important as a first step measure in a long-term solution to the problem. If I understand,
Yes.
Let me
yes.
clarify my point. Every function should have key performance indicators.
Okay.
So, for instance, the Inspector General, or let me use your committee as an example, the Army. What are the responsibilities of the Army, the constitutional responsibilities, and what are the responsibilities that Mr. President has given to the Army? Now, how do you measure that responsibility as a committee?
Key indices.
Exactly. So this is where I made that reference. As an example, the Army has been saddled with the responsibility of tackling terrorism. Now, in 2020, 10,000 people were killed as a result of terrorist activities. Now, the best way you can measure the performance of the Army in 2021 is to see that 10,000 has been brought down to, let's say, 2,000.
Yes.
Then you can clap. So
Even half, 5,000.
5,000. So that's my point. I believe that we need to, in this era of data, the National Assembly and its committees should have some form of key performance indicators with which they measure performances of these 27 ministries and departments and agencies. And more importantly, the capacity.
But he says his job is mainly for the Army. But not just
to clear on that.
Yes, please.
Let me give you an example.
Yes.
The core function of the Army is not to tackle terrorism. The core function of the armed forces put together is to protect the territorial integrity of this country, either by land, sea, or water, or air. Now, this additional responsibility, because it's additional, the idea of internal security is the job of the police.
Yes, entirely.
Go and sleep with that one. It's not for anybody to question that. But because the Constitution provides the president powers, that in an event, Section 217 of the Constitution says, in an event of an insurrection that is beyond the power of the police, you can invite the military to come in. And today, the military is in 35 or 36 of 36 states doing police duties. Now, one of the things that I want us to be cautious about is the issue of data. Most of the data that is being bandied, you have to use a security sense to also be able to be sure of the data. Some of them are being bandied for the sake of propaganda. The ones you see on social media are things you cannot rely on. So
But I think that's all the more reason why.
No, let me. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
No, when you give the Army function, if you go to the Army headquarters today, I can tell you all the processes. One good thing about the Nigerian Army, whatever operation, whether you say they are not good or they are what, in terms of administration and figures, I can assure you, there are people who have data. Even people killed, even the military men that have been killed in war front, they have their data. When we go, we demand for that. People who get injured, people who are currently in hospital, people, even the ones they have been able to rescue that have been kept, let's say, they said they have surrendered. That things we have always been. But what I'm saying is that I agree with you that we must have a data. But this data, depending on who is bringing the data and what are the mechanisms
by which the data
was sourced and that it can be relied upon. Because everybody can turn up a data and say here 10 people were killed here, there are 50. If you do that, there are people who are collecting data in the sense of exploitation. And let me give you an example. Last year, or is it early this year, there were attempts by some parts of the country to say, look, our people have been killed, so we need compensation. And if you don't forget, the former governor of Sokoto, I can't remember Bafarawa went on a campaign and compilation of names to say, look, okay, since you say we should be compensated, we too have our own list in the north. This is a number of people that are actually been killed. We need compensation.
Can we steer the conversation away from those details and from data to other matters? For example, like is funding the army, or indeed even the army, or indeed the use of force, is that the only way to solve the kind of problems, security challenges we have in the north? Because they are not the same. You have insecurity, you have insurrection, as you mentioned, insurgency in the northeast. You have farmer-other clashes in the north central. In Jos, it's not farmer-other clashes, but other kinds of intercommunal conflicts of, with a little of religious undertones, right? And then in the northwest now, you have banditry, which is also essentially, as he mentioned earlier, terrorism, because it's the use of violence for whatever God knows. So how do you solve all of these problems using force?
So again, let me go back to the earlier discussion that we have, and I will explain answer your question.
Thank you.
The National Assembly has three major roles, like Honorable has mentioned. Now, my worry with the approach is that it's not very strategic.
Okay.
How do we bring these three roles together to achieve the purpose of sustaining our democracy?
Okay.
We are coming from a history of military rule, where unfortunately the arm of government that has received the most negative consequence from the long era of military rule is the National Assembly. Now, in the aftermath of since into our Fourth Republic, what kind of changes have we made within the National Assembly to allow for a strategic implementation of these three rules? And I'll explain what I mean. Using oversight as an example, in 2019, the government introduced the revised National Security Strategy 2019, a beautiful document in all its ramifications. In fact, I've looked at that document across several countries. I've seen that of the US, I've seen that of Pakistan, I've seen that of Kenya. Nigeria has one of the best national security strategies.
As far as the plan.
The document is concerned and the objective of the strategy.
Yes.
And I'll urge Honorable to have a look at that document, read the statement by Mr. President in that document, and read the statement by General Monguno, the National Security Advisor, in that document. Now, my worry, in answer to your question, is I thought the National Assembly, as part of its oversight function, should now start asking questions regarding the implementation of that document. 2019 to now, 2021, with the myriad of challenges that we have, that document is yet to be implemented. In fact, what worries me is I hear even governors.
What are the key
indices of that
of the document? What are the suggestions does it make?
In summary,
that is different from what we are doing
in summary, and answering your question, we were told in that document that the approach for security in Nigeria would change from the state-centric approach to a citizen-centered approach. So the modern view of security, which is human security, would be implemented in Nigeria. In other words, an attempt to democratize these 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in government, bring down security down to the people, so that you and I, as Nigerians, will take ownership of security. And one key indices of that is the community policing element within that document. The other key element in that document is the fact that there will be forum for every Nigerian to contribute to security through perhaps this community policing and then through several other platforms. Now again, 2 years into that document, we haven't seen the implementation. And I'm not aware that the National Assembly has asked critical questions to the executive as to why that document is yet to be implemented. So why I brought this up is you asked, should it be only by force? And the answer is no. It shouldn't be by force. Security in today's world, in 2021, going in 2022, is no longer about state security. It's about human security, elements of health security, elements of food security, then technology. Today, we're looking at a situation where unmanned aerial vehicles, a young boy of 10 can put a bomb on a UAV and deliver that bomb. It has happened in South America. A president was almost killed. Then our critical infrastructure in Iraq, in Yemen, and other places, we've seen how bombs are being delivered by these UAVs. Now, as a country, what are we doing to change this current approach to security that unfortunately is highly capitalistic. The average...
The Honorable is not here to speak on behalf of the entire National Assembly or the entire government of Nigeria. He's here
I would love to hear his
also
views.
as a representative of the people, but also as a lawmaker, to speak first in his own capacity as a Nigerian citizen as well, but also as a member of the National Assembly. So the question that what is the National Assembly doing in terms of following up on that document in 2019?
Well, even the document
is
has
a
an
fair question.
Yes, I think that's an observation. First, it's not even a revised national security document. It is the first document that was launched in the whole of Africa. We are the first in this country. The making of that document is a faulty document. The making of the document is a faulty document because when documents that involve national security are made, National Assembly has to be part of the making of the document. We represent you, the two of you, and all other Nigerians.
200 million.
So if you are making a document that will be talking about how we are going to change the concept of security as it affects you and me, as you are representative, we should be part of the document.
Absolutely.
But the executive in this country are always given the opportunity to do what they want to do. For example, the executive have come up with a document, and then they will just invite our leadership to come for the launching of the document. That is where we are involved at the point of launching. Then you will get to see the document on that day, and then you will just go through. In developed worlds, and we have mentioned that during our security conference, I've raised a number of questions in respect to this. These documents, if they are prepared and we are not even involved, you have to lay this document before the National Assembly. Then we will debate on it. Laws sometimes emanate from policies of government.
Absolutely.
We will look at the sensitivity and the workability of the document.
Yes.
As the representative of the people, we debate on it. We will even invite experts like them, because we are not all experts in the same field. I am currently a PhD student running in the area of security.
Interesting.
But I can tell you, everybody has his own area of competence.
Yes.
Now, but no matter how, people who are even very good, we invite them, say, look, this is a document that has been laid before us. What is your input in respect to this? We will be able to take out some few, we can even make laws out of it. But we are not invited. So even when people say the document is a very nice document, to us, the document is just to meet the standard, because we are expected as Nigerians to be able to question. But we have been only doing that at the level of committee. I can be questioning my own at the level of committee, not as a house.
Yes.
This is one. Number two, I really would have been more educated by him, because you asked him about the harmonization. He was talking about the three issues
strategies
about representation, lawmaking, and oversight. That there are good ways we can go about it. If I'm handsomely educated, it will help me to do my job. But I can tell you for free.
I think we can take that one
Yes.
after the program.
Yes.
The real issue is not about how the various roles of the National Assembly can come into play. It's how the National Assembly can help in bringing about the solution, or what they are doing now to bring about solution, and how Nigerians can better appreciate this, or even take opportunities, that may be available in approaching the National Assembly to help solve the problem, because this is a problem that we must solve, because we cannot keep having people killed on our streets and in their homes, in their farms on a daily basis. This is the core of the issue. So maybe we go back to that aspect of the discussion. Yes, the Honorable said that it's not just in northern Nigeria, it's other parts of the country, but it's also undeniable that the larger part of the security challenges in the country is right now in the north. It's more violent, it's more frequent, it's more varied in terms of the different forms that we are seeing. In the Niger Delta, you know what is happening there. In the southeast, you know what's happening there. In the southwest, you know what's going on. But in the north, there are many different kinds of security challenges. Is there a way that the northern Nigeria as a community can approach this even within the purview of one Nigeria, but still, as a northern problem, northern solution? Is there a way that way?
Beautiful question.
Yes.
What are the drivers of insecurity? And I'll quickly mention them. And when you understand the drivers, you can now understand why the North is featuring prominently as the region with more varied security challenges. So number one, socio-economic grievances, political exclusion, economic exclusion, and then to an extent social exclusion. Now this is represented unfortunately in several parts of the North. At state levels, Benue State, the Idoma, the Tiv, Kogi State, the Ibra, Igala, Taraba State, the Hausas and Jukuns, and then like that, Plateau State with different nationalities and all that. So this socio-economic grievances is huge. At the national level, here you can argue that the Southeast perhaps feel that more. But when you look at the granular representation of these grievances, you find that it's more varied in the North, perhaps because of our cultural diversities and sometimes even the religious mix in some places. Kaduna, as an example, southern Kaduna and northern Kaduna. So that's number one. Number two, the weak and, inefficient administration of criminal justice is a little bit more in the North, where offenders are not arrested and most times they are not punished. Sometimes because of affiliations with either wealth or affiliations with political
powers,
people godfathers, as it were. So that unfortunately leads to more grievances, and before you know it, it's exemplified in violence. And a good example is the banditry at the moment. The majority of Fulanis that are involved in the banditry cite extortion by security officials as part of the reason. Their cattle were rustled. They approach the security agencies for remediation or some form of settlement of the issue, and then they were extorted. And somehow along the way they got access to weapons, and where we are at the moment.
Thank you.
I'll quickly mention some of the other. Climate change and the inability of government to manage the effects of climate change. Poverty, unemployment. Our weak borders that allow weapons to come into the country on the moment. Drug addiction. All of these things that I mentioned. If you use poverty as an example, the poverty rate for my state, I'm from Sokoto State, the poverty rate for my state is 87%.
Yes.
The poverty rate for Lagos is 4%.
Yes.
So how many youths from Sokoto move to go to Lagos in search of greener pastures?
And the 87% is true for many parts of the Northeast and other states across for at least 10 states in northern Nigeria. We will be talking about
the crux of our discussion. When I mentioned the strategic approach by the National Assembly, how are they able to bring these drivers of insecurity on board?
Maybe when we come back on, because we're just about halfway into the program now, when we come back on break, we'll let the honorable member to address these issues in terms of what they are doing about these drivers of insecurity in the North. You mentioned criminal justice system, poverty, drug addiction, climate change, and so on and so forth. He may not have the time to speak about all, but he will be speaking about some. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is where we come to the middle of the show. We will be taking a break for just a few seconds, and then when we return, we continue. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on TrustTV. And today we're discussing the role of the National Assembly in stemming rising insecurity in Nigeria. You can also follow us on all our social media handles, on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. The Right Honorable, before we went on break, he was speaking about, Dr. Kabir was speaking about the various drivers of insecurity, particularly things like climate change, things like poverty, things like communal, issues between various groups, So to what extent do you feel that these are, as a representative, because no one will feel this closer to you because people will be speaking to you about this as a representative of people from across northern Nigeria. So to what extent do you think these are parts of the problem, and what roles do you think the National Assembly as an institution can play in helping bring these issues down?
Thank you so much. Almost all the issues he raised as drivers are really true. Now, in the National Assembly, we have several ways of handling the issues. Some of them, it is handled through constitutional amendment. Some of them, they are handled through amendment of certain acts and repealing of certain acts also. Now, I give you an example. In this country, the most serious, especially in the north, one of the serious issues that we have found ourselves where we are today is because governors have refused to allow local government system to work. This is just a core value. This is a government that is most closer to the people. Now, the local government system is so disappointing that they can't even pay salaries, talk less of even be able to go and empower people in terms of even building small roads within the town or markets or provide little healthcare system. This thing does not exist any longer. When the money come, and we in the National Assembly, in the 8th Assembly, I was there, we fought, okay, let's give the local government some financial autonomy. It became a problem. In the National Assembly, we passed it, but we need 2/3 of the entire state houses of assembly. That means out of 36 states, you need about 24 states to get it so that you can go through. But governors will make sure that local government autonomy will not work. Independence of judiciary will not work. Independence of legislature will not work. Anything that you have brought, be able to bring it on board, that will help.
If these things were working, how will they reduce insecurity?
Yes, it will. Okay. Because if you allow, when I was growing up, all of us here come from one local government or the other. My father was a teacher, an Arabic teacher in one of the primary schools. Until he died as an Arabic teacher. So I know how, and I have been working with the local government, so I know that they were providing job for people. They were also providing some empowerment materials for the people. They keeping people. There were local contractors that were doing job, but now there are no contractors that are even the local level. Everybody will come to the center, and the center can no longer hold. This is the reality. Now, when we said, okay, we want to even bring about independence of, let's state police. Now, we want a state police. Now, the fear Nigerians are talking about, so governors will take over the state police and use it to intimidate opponents. And I say, no, that doesn't make sense. A governor is elected in Nigeria for a 8-year term, 8-year periods. Either you spend the first one term, and if you don't get elected, you go for 4 years, or when you come back, you spend
another 4 years.
Laws are not meant to make people in office happy. That's one I want to educate our viewers. As a lawmaker, if I choose to pass a law that will make me comfortable, don't forget that my tenure ends in 2003. Then by the time I'm not in office, they want to feel the heat of that law. So you should do law that can be workable, practicable, and it will help everybody. But I can tell you that we will attempt to do that. So if there's any governor who wants to take advantage of state police because he's a governor today, he will not be governor tomorrow.
Thank you. So it's good that he mentioned two important things, particularly the roles that governors can play, in a distant way in terms of allowing local governance, which then helps to reduce the kind of tensions that lead
drivers of insecurity.
Yes, they reduce the drivers that you mentioned earlier. But even today, in the present circumstance, because before the kinds of institutional changes that he would like to see take place, what roles can governors of the 19 northern states, and indeed of the 36 states in the country? What roles can they play? You know, considering the fact that the governor of Katsina State actually said that they are now chief logistic officers rather than chief executive or security officers when it comes to issues of security. So what can governors do as a layer of leadership in Nigeria to solve this problem?
Now, I would like to respond to this question in the normal, everyday manner, but because I have a responsibility to speak the truth,
yes,
with due respect to
yes,
any governor who calls himself as the chief logistic officer,
yes,
I think that is unfortunately not the exact situation. And let me use Lagos as an example.
okay,
And I call on all governors to emulate the Lagos model. What Lagos did is to set up a trust fund, a security trust fund. That trust fund is one of the best in the world. Now, I belong to an association called ASIS International. We have membership in 153 countries of the world. So I'm privileged to see what other countries
developments in security issues around other countries.
I can look at the New York policing model and compare it with a particular policing model in Nigeria.
Yes.
So when I tell you these things, it's with that at the back of my mind.
Thank you.
Lagos set up a security trust fund that is run like a commercial organization. Well, not commercial, but like a private organization in terms of the structure. So I can look at the governance structure of that trust fund and see how much came into that trust fund, what that money was used for. And more importantly, they have a system where they are able to analyze the needs of all locations within Lagos and discuss with the police the requirement of the police to address internal security issues within Lagos State, and by doing so, assist them in purchase of equipment, assist them with the welfare of their officers. And
so do you think this can be replicated in northern states?
So I start to be corrected. There is no northern state that is transparent with the monies that is voted to it for security. So as an example, the security vote, I doubt if there is any northern state that is transparent with what it uses those security votes.
You mean northern governors?
Not yeah, exactly. So that is number one, to be transparent with the monies that come to you for security through, as an example, such a trust fund. And remember that trust fund also receives money from the public. Every business organization, for instance, that is operating in that state will have the possibility of donating money to that trust fund so that money can be used for the generality of all. Currently, I doubt if there is any northern state that has such a system. Number two, have a governance structure for security within your state. Now, I must comment, even though this may sound a little bit illogical, but I must commend Kaduna State for having a governance structure that is currently being emulated by other states. So what Kaduna did is to create the Ministry of Internal Security and I think Home Affairs or something like that, and has elevated the position of that, the person heading that ministry to a commissioner. To
cabinet position.
Exactly. So several other states have that at the moment, but it must be extended further. Now you have a position. How does that position translate into the implementation of security governance? Now, I mentioned earlier on that there are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in security. Now, all of these 27 ministries and departments and agencies
MDS.
should be geared towards a particular function. What is that function? To manage security within at the federal level and then within the state. Now, that brings us to the discussion of coordination.
Yes.
And that makes the third point. The governor is the chairman of the Security Council at the state level. He's supposed to be a recipient of documents from all of these ministries, departments, and agencies, and then give them strategic direction.
Now,
he cannot issue.
But will there not be friction because some of this will say they don't report to the governor?
That's the third thing I was going to mention.
Yes.
For operational supervision, the governor may not be able to do it because operational supervision is being done by their bosses from Abuja. But in terms of strategic direction, especially in this instance where he's giving them money. Remember, I started with saying there should be a trust fund, a transparent trust fund. And at the moment, even though there are no trust fund, they're actually funding a lot of security activities. And he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So they do have the capacity to influence the activities of this security organization. And so the point I'm trying to make is, depending on the capacity and capability of the governor to manage these things, then he or she would have an effective security governance system in his place. Currently, I doubt if there's any governor in the north that is doing that. Now, I want to mention something which is very important.
10 seconds.
Regional cooperation between these governors is missing. The southwest have a regional cooperation, the southeast have regional cooperation. In the north, we don't have. The only part of the north that is making an effort for that is the northeast. And we're seeing the result.
Northeastern governors for. But Honorable, he's talked exhaustively about governors, but governors are also just one layer of leadership. And many Nigerians, particularly from the northern part of the country, where people are feeling the challenges of insecurity the most, are feeling that the President of the Federal Republic, President Muhammadu Buhari, is not doing enough to lead in terms of providing or finding enduring solutions to the problem of insecurity in the country.
Well, this, I can say, the President cannot do everything. He is the President of Nigeria. That's why he has ministers and other people that he has delegated their powers, his own power, because the minister is carrying out the delegated powers of the President to do certain functions. So I think if you have been given a official responsibility, we expect that you should be able to do that.
Yes.
You see, some of the reasons why we have this challenge is, as a member of National Assembly, right now I am currently co-sponsoring a bill called the Armed Forces Act. Now, we've realized that he mentioned up 27 agencies of government. I'm not too sure of this 27, whether they are more or they are less, but let me use the 27 he has used.
That's all right.
Now, some of these agencies of government have what we call overlapping mandates. Now, and they are either, they get their powers either through the Constitution or by the Act of Parliament. And if we as parliamentarians don't clean this up, you will continue to have clashes, and people who are supposed to have responsibilities will be clashing, and instead of solving the main issue, ego issue will be coming into play. And even when they go through, for example, let me give an example of NCDC, that's a civil defense.
Yes.
Nobody, people, the main job of the NCDC, the civil defense, is infrastructure. That's their main job. But again, the Act provides that they can arrest terrorists. They can arrest the terrorists, interrogate it, and then hand over to the police. So you mean at the point of arrest, the civil defense has right to arrest a terrorist. But somebody will come from the police why did you arrest this person? It's my job. So until we clean up this, there will be issues. Even in joint operations, the law is not able to say, okay, in this joint operation, who is to take lead?
Yes.
Because it's also very important. If you don't define who takes a lead in particular operations, again, ego problems comes in. Instead of solving the problem, people are trying to say, I'm in charge here, or whoever has the most toughest of it takes care of that. So these are things that, as lawmakers, we have identified and are sponsoring it. And by the grace of God, before we close for the Christmas, we hope to clean up that.
Thank you. But recently, just last year or so, the National Assembly, particularly the House of Reps, were at the forefront of calling for the president to sack the service chiefs on the basis that they had failed. So, first, what motivated that? Did you feel that the president was not doing enough, or the service chiefs were not doing enough? And second, what has changed between then and now? Because the insecurity has...
Yes, anytime you hear us speak loud,
yes,
we are speaking the minds of the people, and it depends on the situation at hand. The truth is that service chiefs have stayed they have overstayed their welcome. By the law appointing them, they are supposed to serve for just 2 years, but the president has the right to renew it. You understand the point? But we feel that somebody has stayed in office for over 6 years, to the extent that you will be in office and your junior will come and retire, you are still there. Then that means, and the armed forces are very serious about discipline and seniority. Now today we have challenges of 36 generals that are about either to be sent away, all part of the issues that were happening at the moment. So, but at that time, Nigerians feel that, look, the issues they have tried their best, but it's like you have overstayed their welcome, and there is a diminishing return at that period. So can you give way and others to come back? One good thing about the present corps of the service chief, because I'm working with them directly,
Yes.
I know is that there is cooperation.
Okay.
Today, even the chief of army staff has changed Operation Lafia Dole to Operation Hadinkai. That is the Hausa translation of we should be able to put heads together. Today, all the service chiefs have agreed that the the CDS is their boss. But in the past, that was not the situation. Everybody was bossing of himself. In fact, you find Air Force saying, look, if there's any achievement, the Air Force takes credit on its own. The Army takes credit if it does any operation, Navy takes credit. But today, there is harmonization, there is understanding. And I believe with time. And finally, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we realize that even if we take the Nigerian budget and hand over to the armed forces, it cannot solve the problem.
Yes.
So what do we do?
Okay.
We have a bill now. I'm still sponsoring the bill today, which talks about armed forces support fund. Meaning, how can we get an alternative way of sourcing for fund outside the normal budgetary cycle?
Okay.
I give example of COVID-19. COVID-19 that has not taken so much life the way insurgency has taken.
Yes.
A lot of people have donated money, donated drugs, food, and what have you. So we want to do another version of it. Donate resources, food, and what have you. So that any service we want to take anything, apply to that support fund, then we give you. So that if as a philanthropist, you want to bring money. If Dangote want to bring, you should bring the money to that fund. We don't have to wait until we have issues. And I think if we do that, Nigeria should be proactive. Today, I can tell you, if we are able to defeat Boko Haram, people will go and rest until another problem comes. And that is why I said, if we have to plan, that's what we call long-term planning. We can plan in a manner that even in peacetime,
Yes.
ask him as a consultant, you need to invest in
Security.
because you don't know when the problem will come. But Nigerian attitude, when you enjoy relative peace, you go back to sleep. When there is small bandits, you go to the National Assembly, present budget. When it is solved, you retire. This is a stopgap approach that is not the best for the country.
Thank you. I think that brings us almost to the very end of the program. But like I said, we start from the right and then close on the left. Now, leadership is at various layers. Well, look at the National Assembly, the governors and the president. What about the community and the citizen too? Because the citizen too has a role, like all that the two of you have said now, has a role to play. So what can we specifically in northern Nigeria do, or northern communities do immediately to help, you know, in bringing, or at least reducing reasonably these challenges?
Okay, before I answer your question, I want to be advise the honorable member that in the bill his reason for alternative funding for the military, one key element he should try to introduce is to block current leakages. Because there is this view, and this is based on studies that I have seen, that there are so many leakages within the system. So if you don't block those leakages, it will be as if you are a leaking bucket, you are just dropping the bucket, it will continue to leak. So no matter how much you put. Now with regards to how citizens can contribute, number one of the drivers of insecurity is our value system that has been so debased. And we're responsible for that. As a father, you give birth to kids that you, frankly, you don't take care of. You know, you don't send them to schools. You don't look out for their, you know, what in terms of what is right and wrong. You don't teach them. And in some instances, you also encourage them to do bad things. You go and pay their school in order for the school to, you know, give them the answers to exams that they are going to administer to them. So that's number one. We must take responsibility for our future. What do we want as a country in terms of good and bad? And agree among ourselves that, look, these things that we're doing that is encouraging our value systems to be, you know, destroyed. When I was growing up, if in the neighborhood, if any parent is found as corrupt, believe me, even the front of that house, you will not pass it.
Yes.
But today, it's not that you are corrupt. In fact, if you are the most corrupt but you are the richest, everybody would want either for you, a son from that house to come and marry or a daughter to go and marry. So our value system, that's number one. Number two, we must take responsibility for our security.
Okay.
We're in a democratic system. Elections are going to come in 2023. One of the first things we should do is to ask in clear terms whoever comes to campaign, how do you intend to solve this security challenge? And they must show us in clear and demonstrable terms, this is how they intend to solve the security challenge. Anyone who does not even recognize or realize how to solve that security challenge, as far as I'm concerned, should not govern at any level, local, state, or at the federal level, because we've agreed in the North that perhaps one of our greatest issues at the moment is security, and so we must prioritize it, no matter the kind of narratives. And I'm worried about the narratives I'm hearing in places like Sokoto and Zamfara. The political angle that the insecurity is taking at the moment. So we must, as a people, change the narrative. Let our political leaders understand that this is what we want. We want the problem to be solved. It's not about political party now. It's about the issue. How do you solve it? So whether the political party is A, B, C, or D, they must put a platform on the table that will show in clear terms how they intend to solve the security challenge.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of voting for leaders who know about and are passionate about solving the problems of insecurity, as the two of our guests today have emphasized. I think that brings us to the end of the program today. I want to thank my guests once again, Honorable Abdulrazak Namdas, for coming, and Dr. Kabir Adamu, also a security consultant, for being on the show. We hope to have either of you soon on the program. This is where we draw the curtain on daily politics today. Thank you for staying with us, and we hope that you join us again on Monday when we return with another edition of Daily Politics. My name again is Suleiman. Bye-bye.